Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming all of you guys. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is what we refer to as our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what that is once we get started. What we're going to do is start with meditation, because the Buddha taught how to train your mind to get to enlightenment. And what enlightenment is, where you train your mind to get to a point where it's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you no longer experience any discontent feelings. You won't be experiencing any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of this has been eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. Oftentimes people associate these feelings to something external. They think somebody else is making you angry or making you frustrated. But when you study the teachings of the Buddha and you independently verify his teachings, you can see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And that's why you can actually eliminate them. You can eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings. And meditation is an important part of that. But there's more that you would need besides just meditation. So that's why we study the original teachings of the Buddha as part of all of our programs here. So if you'd like to join for meditation, the way that I start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. This will help you to get more benefit out of the meditation itself. And you can see these chants over there on a laminated sheet. We have them on the cabinet. You're welcome to help yourself and get a laminated sheet so that you can chant along. For anybody who's online, you can get this through our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. Click on free books, and if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll be able to see this chanting sheet there. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that every 2 weeks his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is how they committed them to their memory. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't anything mystical or magical. This isn't a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or prayer or anything like that. Today we use it in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you choose to chant along, which you're welcome to do, you'll see that there's more benefit in your meditation as it eases you into meditation and you get more benefit out of the meditation. If you look at the English translations that are on the chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death. Because a Buddha wouldn't go around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be ego or arrogance and putting yourself above other people. And an individual who's gotten to enlightenment doesn't have ego. They don't put themselves above people or below people. And surely a Buddha wouldn't be doing those kinds of things either. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. You'll get more benefit out of the meditation, but just understand it's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship. It's not prayer. And the Buddha most likely didn't even create these chants. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is enlightenment, and this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you, you might have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. And then once we're in the meditation, I'm going to be providing you some guidance. I'm going to be essentially teaching you and instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're just all meditating together. I'm sure during this period of quietness, you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by or dog barking or bird chirping. This is all normal, that you'll hear sounds that will arise, they will change, and they will fade away. You're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. If you crave permanent quietness during your meditation, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. But if you understand that the world around you is impermanent, and of course you're going to hear sounds, because that's the way the world works, that's the way the world's constructed, and these sounds are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away, you can reside peaceful and joyful in your meditation because you understand the world's working exactly like it was intended to work, where things are constantly changing. So I'm sure you'll hear occasional sounds during the meditation, but as you'll hear in the guidance, you can just continue to focus on the breath, and anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. And then after that, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and that's where I'll help you to understand what the Pali Canon and English study group is, and we can study the words of the Buddha, helping you guys to understand what he taught in order to guide you to enlightenment. In terms of your body position for meditation, the Buddha taught 4 positions. He taught seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times. It's kind of like assembling a tool belt, because your body can't be in the same position all the time, and you're going to need these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment. But since students are oftentimes learning in the seated position, I usually give you guys a little bit of guidance on that just to help you get started. But just understand what I share with you are just suggestions or just recommendations. It's not that you have to sit this way. What's important is that you find something that's comfortable for you. Whether it's something I teach you or whether it's something you've come up with on your own, just ensure that the body is comfortable. You could sit on the floor, you could sit in a chair. If you're at home, you might be on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can sit however you're comfortable. But if you're on the floor, you might consider having some cushions under your rear. This will kind of soften your seat a bit. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, usually people do that nice and light because it helps the circulation to flow. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets their hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left and put his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use this. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up, or maybe you like to rest your hands comfortably in your lap. These are all options for you as well. And then if you're in a chair, on a bench, or a sofa, or a wheelchair, you can also sit however you're comfortable. Some people put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in this chair with my legs crossed, so that's an option as well. And then in terms of your upper body, you would like this to be erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during your meditation. So by having your sternum up and your shoulders back, it'll help you to accomplish that, and it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting to ease us into the meditation. You guys are more than welcome to join in, as it's going to help you in your meditation. And then I'm going to come back in with the guidance to help you from there. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Wat Tung Bhagavanang Apiva Teami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Bhagava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno สคาโตโรกาวิตูอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะขวาโอตังมหาขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาขวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาขวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารนังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. As I was mentioning at the beginning, this is the Pali Canon and English study group where I'll share with you guys what that is as we get started here. But first, just a little bit of details about the teachings of the Buddha. What the Buddha taught is how to help you to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is a mental state that you can attain through training of the mind. As I was sharing, by the time you get to enlightenment, the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. The mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All of these and others are eliminated from the mind through training of the mind. By the time you uproot the pollutions in the mind that the Buddha discovered through training the mind, you'll experience where your mind's focused, concentrated. You'll have clarity of mind and deep memory. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming because you don't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your mind anymore. So you're not harming others, so therefore harm isn't coming back to you, and you'll see your relationships are quite harmonious. Where right now you probably find that to be a challenge. There's probably certain relationships that you struggle in, and you might be blaming those other people for the struggles that you're having in those relationships, but it's actually coming from your own mind, and through the cultivation of wisdom and training of the mind, you can actually get to a point where these relationships are all harmonious. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even be in a bad mood any longer. So through training the mind, gradually developing the mind, you'll be able to see that the mind is improving gradually, slowly but surely. The teachings of the Buddha aren't about a bunch of beliefs and then hoping something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life and experiencing more and more improvement in this life, getting to the point where your mind is completely peaceful and joyful, as I mentioned. Oftentimes people blame others. others for the feelings that they experience. But this is just coming from the mind's lack of wisdom. When you investigate the teachings of the Buddha and you work to independently verify them, you can actually see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. The mind having craving, desire, attachment, longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of your affection. Whereas if the mind gets what it wants, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and others. But you can eliminate this from the mind through training of the mind. So in all the different programs that I share, I base what I teach on the original words of the Buddha, helping students to be able to investigate and examine those teachings so that you can intellectually understand them. Then I show you how to reflect on them to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then I teach you how to integrate these teachings into your day-to-day life to be able to train your mind and experience the results of the mind becoming more and more enlightened. When we talk about awakening of the mind, we're talking about cultivation of wisdom. And what the Buddha essentially did is he took human psychology and he boiled it down to a common understanding that the average person can understand. And now through training your mind in the way that the Buddha taught, you can experience the same mental state that he experienced. So there isn't these rules and commandments or anything like that. It's not about, somebody telling you what you should or shouldn't be doing. It's about you being an independent practitioner, cultivating wisdom, understanding how the world around you is functioning, and by you awakening or cultivating wisdom of these natural laws, you'll be able to navigate the world more peacefully. Because when you navigate the world with a lack of wisdom of the natural laws, you'll tend to make unwise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results in your life. We refer to this as kamma, or karma. Some people refer to it as karma. What this is a cause and effect or action and result. It's a natural law. It's nothing mystical or magical. It's not about who's to blame or who's at fault. It's none of that. It's about understanding the causes and conditions, the decisions that you make that lead to any particular result that you experience in life. And when you lack wisdom of this natural law, you'll tend to make unwise decisions and you'll experience unwholesome results. And then that's where people will typically blame it on someone else. Or they might say it's good luck or bad luck or destiny or fate, or maybe some being like God or some entity called the universe that is controlling what you experience. Or some people blame it on other people, what they experience in day-to-day life. Well, if you resign yourself to this type of thinking, you can't actually change what it is that you experience on a day-to-day basis, because you can't change good luck or bad luck. You can't change destiny or fate. You can't change God or some entity called the universe. And you can't change other people. It's not possible. But you can change your own mind. You can train your mind and you can change your understanding of the world around you, where you can awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws. And now with that wisdom, you can navigate the world and experience more and more peace, more and more joy, harmonious relationships, getting to the point where your mind is completely peaceful and joyful. So there's various classes and courses, retreats, resources, even personal guidance, things like this, like books and audiobooks, things like this that you can get. You can get these at no cost, where you can actually learn and grow and develop on this path, because you don't need to keep experiencing anger and sadness and frustration and all these other feelings over and over. You can actually change what you experience. Just like you opt out of an email and you're like, nope, not interested in your emails anymore. You can do the same thing with these discontent feelings. You can be like, nope, opting out of those. But unfortunately, it's not just a matter of clicking a button. It's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. One of the big myths about the life story of the Buddha is that he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. If you study his original teachings, he helped you to be able to see where it's gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. So in all these other programs, I usually teach 15, 20, 30 minutes and then open up to questions. I teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes and open up to questions. We start with this first book of our book series. It's called Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. This is the best place to start. You can download this book for free from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon if you have access to that. That's the best place to get started. And then all the various programs that I share are helping you to be able to gradually understand the foundational teachings. A program like this, what we do is we explore volumes 2 through 13 of the book series, because the book series has 13 volumes. And now we're in volume 11, which is actually titled The Realms of Existence. And we're in chapters 31 through 40. And what we do in the study group is I invite students here at the temple, or those of you guys that are in Zoom, to be able to read one of these chapters. This chapter here, you can see it's like basically a half a page. And after somebody reads the chapter, I will share some teachings on that. Then I will open up to any questions that you guys have. So this isn't where someone will typically start in their journey to enlightenment. There's no harm in you being here to learn. Even if you've never learned from the words of the Buddha before, you'll surely gain benefit and learn from what it is that you're going to be exposed to today. But just understand that there's other programs that will really help you get a really nice foundation, and where this program will kind of help you fill in that and help you to kind of get more content to be able to fill in this framework that you can develop as part of the foundational teachings. So if you guys would like to volunteer to read this first chapter, we have microphones here at the temple in the white bowl. All you need to do is come over here, get a microphone. You can take it back to your seat, press the gray button, and then the lights will come on, and you just hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep this microphone with you, because you might have a question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone. And then when you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers. And then anybody in Zoom, you can volunteer to read these by electronically raising your hand, unmuting your microphone, and then we'll be able to hear you all throughout the live stream and throughout the temple. And then if you have questions, again, if you guys could use the microphones here, and then if you're in Facebook, YouTube, or in Zoom, you can put those comments in the comment section, your questions, and then I'll be able to see those. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask your questions that way. So Terrence, I saw you would like to volunteer. Yeah, go ahead, sir, please.
Chapter 131, Abandoning Being Capable of Destroying Discontentedness. Monks, without directly knowing and fully understanding form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, choices, decisions, consciousness, without becoming free from strong feelings towards it and abandoning it, one is incapable of destroying discontentedness. Monks, by directly knowing and fully understanding form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, by becoming free from strong feelings towards it and abandoning it, one is capable of destroying discontentedness. Monks, abandon desire and craving for form, for feeling, for perception, for volitional formations, for consciousness. Thus, that form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness will be abandoned, cut off at the root, made like a palm stump, obliterated so that it is no more subject to future arising.
Okay, thank you, sir. So what we have here is we have the words of the Buddha, and then there's a reference here that takes you back to the original source teachings of the Buddha. The original source teachings of the Buddha are in something called the Pali Canon. This is 45 volumes of books that are about this thick, and this will take you back to that so you can see where this came from, because this is an excerpt from that. Then you've got words from me here to be able to help you integrate this into your life and be able to reflect on it, to be able to really apply it in your day-to-day life. So what the Buddha is teaching you here in this particular teaching, it's a very short teaching where he's helping you to understand to eliminate that longing, yearning, the craving, the desire, the attachment, the wants and expectations, where you can come to the middle. Where sometimes when people hear me say this, to eliminate longing, yearning, and craving, desire, attachment, wants, and expectations, they actually think that that means that you swing all the way over here to the other side where you're dull and lethargic and lazy and sluggish. The unenlightened mind can usually see those two sides really well. But what the Buddha is teaching you is to be able to come to the middle, where you can gradually pursue things as a goal, objective, or interest without this longing, yearning, and basing your inner feelings on whether you get this thing or not. Because if you're chasing after something, longing, yearning, if the mind gets it, it feels happy or excited, it gets pleasant feelings. But if the mind doesn't get what it wants, it gets painful feelings. And you can independently verify this for yourself, because remember, nothing Everything the Buddha taught is based in belief. So don't believe anything that I'm sharing here. Look at situations in your own life where you maybe want something and you're longing, yearning for it. And if you get it, you're happy and excited. But if you don't get what you want, you're angry or frustrated. You can see it's your own mind that's causing this. Essentially, what the mind's doing in the unenlightened state is it's craving permanence. It wants things to be permanent, but yet you live in an impermanent world. So if you get really happy and excited when it's sunny outside, that means when it rains, you'll be sad or frustrated or agitated because the mind's craving that sun to be permanent. And you've based your inner feelings on the sun, that you are happy because it's sunny. But because the sun is not permanent, your feeling of happiness is not permanent either. So if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, then when it goes down here, you'll be sad or frustrated. The only thing that's happened is change. That's it. But the mind craves permanence. You can think back to when we were children and our parents gave us chocolate and ice cream. Boy, were we so happy. That was a wonderful day. And if we got that like 2 or 3 times a day, oh my goodness, there couldn't have been a day better than that, right? But then a certain day came along where we asked our parents for chocolate and ice cream and they said, no, you can't have any. We were angry and frustrated because we didn't get what we wanted. We wanted that chocolate and ice cream to be permanent, but it wasn't, right? We're not going to be able to eat chocolate and ice cream every day. It's just not possible, right? So you can see that it's your own mind that's craving permanence. It's holding on and it's clinging. And there are certain material objects out in the world that the mind's longing, yearning to hold on to permanently. You can see this in relationships. If you've been in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you guys first got together, you were probably so happy and so excited. But when you guys broke up, you were probably frustrated or agitated or annoyed, or you might have been lonely or bored or missing this person. This is the mind craving permanence. It's not your love that's causing this. This is your mind craving this relationship to be permanent, when in reality it is impermanent. The same thing when grandma and grandpa or mom or dad or brothers and sisters die. The mind holds on and craves permanence. So there's all these things, these material things that the mind can hold on to and cling to, craving permanence, and it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. And then it will get painful feelings when it's not getting what it wants. But the Buddha is bringing your attention here to something that we refer to as the 5 aggregates, or you might think of them as the 5 criteria or the 5 elements. These are the 5 things that determine what is a living being. And you have all 5 of these things because you are a living being. And the mind will tend to cling to these, craving them to be permanent. And you can only be happy when you get what you want, and then you'll have these painful feelings when you're not getting what you want. So what form is the physical body, right? Then there's feeling. This is your pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. Then you've got perceptions, which are your views and opinions about the world that may or may not even be true. And you look out at the world with certain views and opinions, and now you hold on to those. Then there's what's called volitional formations, which are choices and decisions. These are the choices that you make. You have free will to make whatever choices that you'd like. Then there's a consciousness or the mind. So when your mind's clinging and holding on to these, craving permanence, you can only be happy when you get what you want. And then when you're not getting what you want, you get painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant. So let me give you some examples so you understand this. Let's say the physical form. Let's say you're craving permanent youthfulness and you're craving to look a certain way. You're clinging to this physical form, this body, wanting it to look a certain way. Now you look in the mirror and you see a pimple or a mole, or you see a wrinkle, or you see that you have gray hair, or you're losing your hair, or you get a little bit extra fat here and there. Now your mind's all shaken up by that, because your mind's craving this permanent youthfulness. You're craving this body to look a certain way permanently. And now when you see a pimple or a mole or a wrinkle or something like this, you're all shaken up when you look in the mirror, right? Or say your feelings, like happiness. Maybe you're clinging to that, holding on to it, craving for it to be permanent. So then when you're sad, you're even more sad, because now you're sad that you're sad, right? Or frustrated that you're frustrated, right? This is what the mind can actually experience. Or certain perceptions, your views and opinions about the world, like maybe your political views. You might have certain political views about how the world should operate politically. And now if if you cling to those, you might want everyone to agree with you. And now when people agree with you, you feel really happy. But then when people don't agree with you, you might be angry and frustrated and agitated and annoyed. And when this anger is arising in the mind, the unenlightened mind, with its lack of wisdom, it'll think something external is causing these painful feelings of anger. And what you will tend to do is you will tend to push people away. You will be bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you'll put your expectations on them, trying to control them or pressure them to do things your way. This is the mind becoming unskillful. And when the mind is becoming unskillful like this, then you're damaging your relationships, and you can't live harmoniously with all people, because it's only a matter of time before someone disagrees with you about something, right? Because no one is going to agree with you about everything. That would be permanence, right? There's only one person in the world that will agree with you every single time. Do you know who that is? I think you do, right? Yeah, yourself. You're the only one that's going to agree with you 100% of the time. So if you can only be peaceful and joyful around people who agree with you, you can only be peaceful with yourself. And you probably find that hard to do sometimes, right? So these perceptions are your views and opinions about the world that may or may not even be true, that the mind clings to it, wanting other people to agree with you. And you might even go out into the world and try to convince other people that your ideas are true and correct and that people should agree with you. Then there's certain volitional formations or choices and decisions that the mind will cling to. Any number of decisions that you could cling to. The example I usually give is like, say I really wanted to go to Australia, and I'm so excited to go to Australia. And now 6 months in advance, I booked these plane tickets, and maybe I put down a deposit for them, right? And now as we get closer and closer to the time that I'm supposed to go to Australia, maybe my financial situation has changed, and I can no longer afford to go to Australia. Well, if I cling to this decision, I will be so happy and excited when I think I'm going to Australia. But as we get closer to going to Australia and I realize that I can't go because of my finances, now clinging to that decision and really wanting to go, but realizing that I can't go, I'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll take out all kinds of debt in order to be able to afford to go to Australia. And now maybe that was an unwise decision for me to do that. So if we cling to our decisions, we will be uncomfortable to change our decisions. And because of impermanence and things constantly changing, we need to have the freedom to change our decisions. Because if you make a decision 6 months in advance, which is no problem doing that, between now and then, things are going to change. And you need to be comfortable to let go of that decision and make a new decision. Otherwise, you're going to implement a decision that's based on something that was true 6 months ago, but it's no longer true today. And now you've implemented a decision based on false truths, and now it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. So you would like each one of your decisions to be wise and based in truth. So if you don't have the comfort to let go of your decision and you just cling to it, wanting it to be permanent, when all those things are changing, you won't feel comfortable to let go. And now you're going to implement a decision that could potentially be unwise, and now it's going to produce unwholesome results for you. Then there's this consciousness. The consciousness is the mind itself. This is where you can cling to a self-identity of who you think you are as a person. Maybe your nationality, your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your job or occupation. You could cling to any number of things, thinking that this is who you are. Maybe I am Chinese, or I am American, or I am Canadian, or I am an Aussie, or I don't know where all you guys are from. Argentina, I'm Argentinian, I'm Ecuadorian, right? All of this I am, right? I am Spanish, right? I am a Brit, right? All of this I am. It can be any number of things about your nationality or any of these different things. And now if you're at a restaurant and 2 tables over, they're talking fondly about your nationality, you'll be really happy and excited because they're talking in this really wonderful way about people that come from the place that you come from. But then if 2 tables over, they're talking in degrading and disparaging ways about where you come from, and your mind identifies and clings to this identity of who you think you are, and you're craving this permanence for everybody to look at you in a positive light, now you'll be frustrated and angry when that person's talking in a negative way. And again, you can't change other people. You can't control what other people do. All you can do is control your own mind. So when you hear this person talking in a negative and degrading way, you'd be very angry and frustrated. And there's plenty of other examples I could give you with that too, but you guys are starting to get the picture here with these 5 aggregates, that the mind is clinging to these, because it's really obvious to see the external things, that you might cling to a computer, you might cling to a phone. It's not the phone itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way that the mind longs and yearns for it, wanting it to be permanent. So then when you misplace it, or it's lost or stolen or it's broken, you're angry or frustrated because you're craving for this phone to be permanent. The phone isn't the problem. The problem is the discontentedness in the mind. The cause of that is the mind craving and longing, yearning for it to be permanent. You can eliminate that longing, yearning, understanding that this phone is not permanent, and still take care of it, but you're not craving for it to be permanent. And then the way that you're going to be able to learn how to do that is through the Eightfold Path. So it's really obvious about these external things that, yeah, the mind can long and yearn for it, but it's not so obvious with these things because these are kind of like all within this being. And the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that these 5 aggregates are something that you can cling to. And as long as you cling to them, you can't get to permanent peace and permanent joy. Because if you're craving this physical form to be permanent, but yet it's constantly changing, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. If you cling to your feelings and you're longing, yearning to be happy all the time, but you just can't get to it because you're basing your inner feelings on some impermanent condition. Or if you cling to your perceptions, your views and opinions, not everyone's going to agree with those. So if you crave for everyone to agree with you, you can't be permanently happy. And then if you cling to your choices and decisions, again, as those are changing, you're going to be uncomfortable to change your decisions, or the consciousness itself. So the Buddha helps you to see that you're incapable of destroying this discontentedness and eliminating discontentedness, becoming free of strong feelings, as long as your mind clings to these. So he's saying knowing and fully understanding form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness is a prerequisite for getting to the point where you can eliminate discontentedness. And by fully understanding what is form, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness, then you can abandon this desire and craving, this clinging, this longing, yearning for them. If you didn't understand what they were, you wouldn't actually be able to eliminate your craving and clinging towards them. So that's why you need to first understand what they are. And then by understanding what they are and eliminating the craving and clinging, becoming free and abandoning that, that's where the mind will actually get to the point where it's not experiencing any discontentedness any longer. So this is the first chapter here that we're studying as part of this study group. And now I'm just going to open up to questions that you guys might have related to anything I've been sharing or anything that the Buddha is sharing here. If you guys could use a microphone here, and then online you guys can put that into Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So does anyone have any questions on what I've been sharing with you guys? No questions? Okay. Let's see if we have anything here online. All right. I don't see anything. Okay. So now we'll go to the next one. Is there someone who would like to read this one? Yes, ma'am. Just takes a second to engage. I think it's on now. Yeah, it's on now. I hear it.
There is no you there. Then Bahia, when for you there will be only the seen in reference to the seen, only the heard in reference to the heard, only the sensed in reference to the sensed, only the recognized in reference to the recognized, then Bahia, there is no you in connection with that. When there is no you in connection with that, there is no you there. When there is no you there, you are neither here nor there, nor between the two. This, just this, is the end of stress.
Okay. This is a very short teaching from the Buddha. And what he's doing is he's pointing to something that we refer to as the universal truth of non-self. This is actually connected to the previous teaching. The previous teaching was helping you to be able to understand how to eliminate clinging to all these 5 aggregates or these 5 criteria: form, feelings, perceptions, volitional formations, which are choices and decisions, and the consciousness, right? What the mind will tend to do in the unenlightened state is it'll cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are as a person, right? So that's why when this body looks a certain way and you go out into the world, you feel happy, you feel great. But then like you spill something on this body and now you're embarrassed. If you spilled like spaghetti sauce or chocolate ice cream on your clothing, or you see all pimple or mole or wrinkle or gray hair, you might be shaken up by that. That's because the mind thinks that this body is you and who you are as a person. And the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way, right? Or like, let's just say the choices and decisions that you make. Let's just say you have a certain identity in your mind based on that. Maybe you say that I am a nice person. I am kind, right? But now someone says, you're the rudest person I've ever met, right? And you're like, whoa, and you get really angry with that because your mind identifies with I am kind and I am friendly, right? Or the identity, the culture, ethnicity, the sexual orientation, the nationality, your job or occupation, any number of things your mind can cling to as who you think you are. Like say I was doing a job as a police officer and I thought that I am a police officer. Well, now as long as I'm doing that job, I feel great. But then when I get injured and I can't do the job anymore, or I get fired or laid off, or maybe I retire and I can't do that job anymore and I'm driving a taxi cab, well, now the mind's identifying with I am a police officer and I feel like less of a person. I don't feel whole any longer because I'm here driving this taxi cab where my mind is longing, yearning to be a police officer. And that's how I identify, right? And now the mind is uncomfortable and it doesn't feel whole any longer. So this is going to produce stress in the mind, right? As long as you cling to any of these 5 aggregates, thinking that this is who you are as a person, it's going to produce stress because you're going to have experiences where you're not a police officer anymore because the mind's craving and clinging to that, wanting it to be permanent, when in reality, it's not permanent. You can't be a police officer forever. It's not possible, right? So what the Buddha is teaching you is to let go of all of these things, not seeing these things as who you are as a person. And that's what's going to help you to get to the end of this stress or these discontent feelings, not just stress, but all discontent feelings. Because if you cling to any of these 5 aggregates, you can have anger, sadness, frustration, or any of these discontent feelings. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that these things are not you. It's not who you are. So while I understand this body was born on a land that we refer to as America, the mind doesn't have to adopt the identity of I am American. I can just understand that, yeah, a lot of people call that land America, but this mind doesn't have to adopt that identity of who I am as a person. But the thing is that we've been taught our whole life to do just the opposite. That's why our countries have flags, we have national anthems, we have sports teams, we cheer and cheer and cheer because I am American. So that means I should cheer for the American team, right? That's the way that we've all been taught, that we've been our mind has been conditioned to think a certain way. So what the Buddha is helping you to be able to do is uncondition the mind, purify the mind where you don't cling to these things as who you think you are, that you can ultimately get to a point where you realize non-self. You will realize that, sure, this body was born in a place called Ecuador or China or Australia or wherever it is, but you don't have to adopt that identity. And sure, maybe you appreciate your culture, your ethnicity, maybe you appreciate the people on that land, but your mind doesn't have to adopt that identity of I am this. Because you can only be happy when people are talking favorably about that. When you hear people saying things unfavorably, that's where you'll be angry or frustrated or annoyed. So the way to get free of all of that is to not allow your mind to adopt this identity of who you think you are. So the Buddha calls this the non-self, that he says here, there is no you there. Right? There's no you there. It's just a body. It's just skin and bones and fluid and muscle tissue. None of that stuff is you, but your mind's going to cling to it as who you think you are. So the Buddha is saying, When for you there will only be the seen in reference to the seen, only the heard in reference to the heard, only the sensed in reference to the sensed, only the recognized in reference to the recognized. Then, student, there is no you in connection with that. What he's saying is like, hey, there's just sounds. There's just things that you see. None of this should be adopted in the mind as who you think you are as a person, that there is no you there. There's no you in connection with that. When there's no you in connection with that, there's no you there. When there's no you there, you are neither here nor there nor between the two. In other words, you get to a point where you can't identify that there is a you, right? There's obviously a body. There's obviously a mind that's come into existence, and these two things coming together, we call that a person or a human being. But as soon as you cling on to this, wanting it to be permanent, now you're going to really struggle. Like, for example, when you get close to death, you'll have a very painful death because you're holding on to this world, wanting it to be permanent, when the mind doesn't realize with wisdom that it's impermanent. Everything around you is constantly changing. So as soon as you allow your mind to adopt any of these things as who you think you are, there's going to be this coming and going where the mind constantly wants to be somewhere else. You don't feel content and peaceful and joyful in the present moment. The mind wants to go do something else. It can't be peaceful and joyful in the present moment. But when you shed all of this and you realize non-self, that you realize there is a body, there is a mind, and we call the combination of these two things a human being, but you don't have to adopt this identity through those things. But your mind has been trained to do this for so long that you're adopting the identity of your culture, your ethnicity, maybe your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation, or any number of things that your mind can cling to as who you think you are. One time there was a student that called me after COVID, and he was having all these difficulties going into restaurants where he was used to, prior to COVID, just go order a coffee and he would pay his money and with cash, and then he would leave and no big deal, right? But now after COVID, he was going into a coffee shop and he was ordering his coffee, and then they would turn around a screen and it would say, okay, this is your total and you need to pay with this cashless payment, tapping his card, and it would ask him, do you want to tip 25%, 30%, whatever it is? And he said, I'm so conflicted in this place. He's like, I go in there, I spend 30 seconds giving them my order and they want a tip. He's like, I'm a good tipper and I tip everywhere I go, but this particular place, I just don't tip because I don't think I have to tip, because it's just a coffee. It's just 30-second order. Why should I have to tip them for just taking my order and doing their job? And he's like, I'm so conflicted with this because I am a good tipper, right? This is the mind clinging to an identity. I am a good tipper, and I can only feel comfortable when I tip. When I don't tip, I don't feel comfortable. So this student was looking for help and looking for guidance. Why does he feel so conflicted in this situation, right? Why does he feel so uncomfortable not tipping? Well, it's because his mind is craving permanence, and he identifies with I am a great tipper. And when he tips, he feels great. But when he doesn't tip, he didn't feel great. But tipping is not permanent. You're not going to tip in every single place that you go every single time, right? So if you can only be happy and joyful when you tip, that means your happiness is not permanent. And what the Buddha is guiding you to is a permanent mental state where your mind can always be peaceful and always be joyful. But you can't do that as long as you cling to an identity of who you think you are. And this is an example of that. So your mind can cling to any number of things of who you think you are. So you guys have any questions on this? No questions? Okay. No questions. All right. So let's go to the next one then. Someone would like to read this? This is a very short one. Pam, would you mind reading this one and the next one too? The next one is very similar.
Okay.
It's already on.
The condition. Monks, these three characteristics. There are these three characteristics that define the condition. What three? An arising is seen, a vanishing is seen, and its alteration, while it persists, is seen. These are the three characteristics that define the condition.
Okay, now this one is very similar.
The unconditioned. Monks, there are these three characteristics that define the unconditioned. What three? No arising is seen, no vanishing is seen, and no alteration while it persists is seen. These are the three characteristics that define the unconditioned.
Perfect. Thank you. So what the Buddha does in all his teachings is he's helping you to understand the way the world is. He's not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And the way the world is that it's conditioned, that there are certain conditioned objects in the world, that they arise, they change, and they fade away. This is impermanence. And this is so important to understand because the mind in the unenlightened state with its lack of wisdom goes around craving permanence. It doesn't understand the universal truth of impermanence. So what the Buddha says is that all conditioned objects are impermanent. Sometimes people think that the Buddha says everything is impermanent. He doesn't actually say that. He says all conditioned objects are impermanent. They arise, they change, and they fade away. This is very important, key wisdom to be able to understand as part of the teachings of the Buddha. In fact, the very first teaching that I usually share with students is what's called the universal truth of impermanence, helping you to understand that things are going to arise, they're going to change, and they're going to fade away. Anything you see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, they are all constantly changing because they're a conditioned object. They arise, they change, and they fade away, right? So this is what's called a conditioned object. And this is so important to understand because when you see that your mind is craving permanence while you live in an impermanent world, you realize, oh my goodness, this is, needs to be changed, right? Because you're craving for like grandma and grandpa to be alive permanently. When they're alive, you're happy. But when they die, you don't like that. That's the impermanence that the mind doesn't understand, right? Another way to say that the mind craves permanence is to say that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. And when things are changing, the mind doesn't like that, right? It doesn't understand that the world has all these conditioned objects, that it's full of this impermanence. But then the Buddha explains that there's unconditioned objects too, that they do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. There's only two unconditioned objects. There's enlightenment itself. Once you get to enlightenment, your mind has been unconditioned. In the unenlightened state, you have a conditioned mind. You have certain conditions like pollutions that are in the mind, and that's causing the discontent feelings, the anger, the sadness, frustration, and all these discontent feelings, all the unwise decisions that one experiences and makes. It's coming from a conditioned mind. The mind has been conditioned to think a certain way, and now it makes unwise decisions through that conditioning. But what you're doing on the path to enlightenment is you're purifying the mind. You're unconditioning it. You're getting rid of the pollutions of the mind. You're getting to a point where you have an unconditioned mind. And having done so, all the causes and conditions that lead to anger and sadness and frustration and things like that, they've been eliminated from the mind. So the mind is now in a permanent mental state where it's peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy because there's no condition that's going to cause anger to arise. It's been purified. So there's no arising, changing, or fading away of any feelings because the mind is in this permanent mental state. The mind has been purified. It's unconditioned. So enlightenment itself, the mental state of enlightenment, is permanent. And the natural laws that the Buddha taught that you need to gain wisdom of in order to awaken to this enlightened mental state, those natural laws are permanent too. That's why the Buddha's teachings are timeless. What he taught 2,500 years ago are exactly the same laws that exist today. And if you learn those natural laws, you'll be able to see them very clearly. And now you can get to a point where your mind's fully awake and you can navigate the world peacefully. Those natural laws are unconditioned. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. This is why his teachings are timeless. Now, people's memories of his teachings and the books that people write and the way people practice his teachings, that is impermanent. Those have been constantly changed. And he warned us that it would be unwise to change his teachings, because as soon as you change a Buddhist teachings, they don't lead to enlightenment any longer. So there's plenty of misunderstandings in the world about the teachings of the Buddha. But when you get back to his original teachings and you study his original words, you'll be able to see what did he teach and what he didn't teach. So if anybody's interested in getting to enlightenment, you would need to know the true teachings of the Buddha and study his actual words with reliable translations that are going to help you. So that's why, as part of all these programs, I've constructed it around the original words of the Buddha, and I share them through all these books and give it away for free so that you guys can get access to it. So you can see, what did he actually teach? So the Buddha taught that there's conditioned objects that arise, change, and fade away. This is impermanence. And anything in the material world around you, everything and anything in the material world is all impermanent. It's all conditioned, including this being who we are. We arose, we change, and we fade away. We are impermanent. And everything in the world around you is impermanent. But there's unconditioned objects like enlightenment and the natural laws of existence. And this is helpful for you to be able to understand this, because then you can see how enlightenment is actually permanent. So do you guys have any questions on these two here, where the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that there's conditioned objects and unconditioned objects in the world? The conditioned objects arise, change, and fade away. The unconditioned objects do not arise, do not change, and do not fade away. And these are things that you can independently verify. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions anywhere. All right, so now let's go to this next one, 135. Is there someone who would like to read this? Steve?
Where earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing. Once Kavada, in this order of monks, the thought occurred to a certain monk, I wonder where the four great elements, the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the wind element, are eliminated without remainder. And the monk attained to such a state of mental concentration that the way to the heavenly realm appeared before him. And the monk attained to such a state of mental concentration that the way to the heavenly realm appeared before him. He went to the heavenly realm of the four great kings and asked the questions. When none of them could answer the question, the monk then went to the 33 gods, who said, we don't know, but Saka, ruler of the heavenly beings, may know. Saka told the monk to ask the Yama heavenly beings, the Suyama, the Tusita heavenly beings, the Santusita, Nimarati, Sunimita, Radha heavenly beings, Vasati, Brahma's associates, and all the way to the great Brahma. The great Brahma avoided to answer, and finally said that the heavenly beings believe there is nothing Brahma does not know, but the truth is he does not know where the four great elements cease without remainder. It is the monk's fault that he did not ask the perfectly enlightened one. In the end, the monk went back to the perfectly enlightened one. So the monk, as swiftly as a strong man might flex or unflex his arm, vanished from the Brahma world and appeared in my presence. He prostrated himself before me, then sat down to one side and said, Venerable Sir, where are the four great elements, the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the wind element, eliminated without remainder? I replied, Monk, once upon a time, sea-travelling merchants, when they set sail on the ocean, took in their ship a land-sighting bird. When they could not see the land themselves, they released this bird. The bird flew to the east, to the south, to the west, to the north. It flew to the zenith overhead and to the immediate points of the compass. If it saw land anywhere, it flew there, but if the bird saw no land, it returned to the ship. In the same way, monk, you have been as far as the Brahma world searching for an answer to your question, and not finding it, now you come back to me. But monk, you should not ask your question in this way. Where are the four great elements, the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the wind element, eliminated without remainder. Instead, this is how the question should be put. Where do earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing? And where are long and short, small and great, fair and foul, where the name and form wholly destroyed? And the answer is where consciousness is quieted, immeasurable, all radiant. That's where earth, water, fire, and wind find no footing. There are both long and short, small and great, fair and foul. The name and form are wholly destroyed. With the elimination of consciousness, this is all destroyed.
Okay, thank you, sir. So whenever you see the Buddha talking about earth, water, fire, and wind, what he's talking about is the physical body. This is how they described the physical body 2,500 years ago, where today we talk about atoms and cells and molecules and things like this, that they didn't have that available to them, that science hadn't developed to that point. So they would often refer to the body through these four elements. And even today, traditional medicine, they will actually diagnose the body through these four elements, and they will treat the body through these four elements. What the earth element is the solids of the body. So like the teeth, right? The hair, the bones, the fingernails. These are the solids of the body. The water is the liquids of the body, like tears, saliva, urine, blood, things like this, sweat, pus. This is all the water element. Then there's the fire element. This is like the heat in the body. This is often associated with digestion. So the temperature of the body is considered the fire element. And then the wind element is any movement. So like the blood itself is considered the water element, but the movement of the blood through the body is the wind element. Or like the feces inside the colon. This is the earth element, but the movement of that through the colon is the wind element. So they would diagnose the body through these four elements. So what this person is asking is, where do these four great elements cease without remainder, right? Where are they eliminated without remainder? What he's saying is, where can we get to a point where this rebirth is no longer occurring over and over and over again? Because the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth and that you have more than one life, right? As you heard me share at the beginning of class, there's no belief in the teachings of the Buddha. You're not believing anything, including the cycle of rebirth. You can actually independently verify that you're in the cycle of rebirth. Right now, you might be believing that you only have one life, but you don't have any evidence of that, other than the fact that you can't remember right now, perhaps, what were your previous lives. But as you start lifting this pollution out of your mind, you might actually start observing and having memories of your past lives. And if you start having memories of your past lives and you didn't understand that that's what it was, it could really shake you up. Say you started having these vivid memories of being murdered in your past life, right? And these were, you didn't know that it was your past life. You just had these vivid memories of being murdered. They just kept replaying over and over and over in your mind, and you didn't know what that was. You would really shake you up. But if you understand, like, that's the past life, I can just train my mind to let it go. I don't have to think about it. I can just cut it off and let it go. Now you can reside peaceful and joyful. So the Buddha does teach this cycle of rebirth, and he teaches it for a reason, because if you start having vivid memories of your past lives, you would like to know that that's what that is. He also teaches the 5 realms of existence: hell, animal, afflicted spirits, which are like ghosts. He teaches the human realm, and he teaches the heavenly realm. Again, this is the truth. This is actually what is occurring, and you can independently verify this. And where this is actually helpful for you is that, once again, as you're lifting out this pollution out of your mind, you might actually get to a point where you start hearing communication from these beings, either from the hell realm or the afflicted spirit realm, or even the heavenly realm. These realms are beings that are formless in those realms. They don't have physical form, but they're all in the same time and space as us. Sometimes people think like the hell beings are deep down in the core of the earth, or the heavenly beings are way up in the sky somewhere, but this isn't actually true. We're all in the same time and place, right? Just like there's a human being sitting in this chair. If this human being got up and left, there could be an animal that came in and sat here, because we're all in the same time and space. The same thing's true about hell beings, afflicted spirits, and heavenly beings. So if you started hearing communication from these beings and you didn't understand that that was true and real, you could think you're going crazy. Or some people can actually see these beings. They can see hell beings or ghosts, afflicted spirits, or heavenly beings. And again, if you saw beings that are formless, that do not have physical form, this could really shake you up if you didn't understand that's the way the world really is. So the Buddha's teachings aren't about getting to heaven and having this wonderful life after now, because the heavenly realm is not permanent. You can see the world around you is constantly changing. There's a universal truth of impermanence. Sometimes people are taught that the heavenly realm is permanent or the hell realm is permanent. This isn't true. You can see the natural laws that things are constantly changing in the world around you. But if you thought that these things are permanent, your goal is to somehow do a wonderful job this life and you're going to be reborn in this permanent place called heaven, this isn't actually true. It's not the way the world's constructed. And the Buddha teaches you that throughout all of his teachings. So it's helpful to understand the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence, but that's not normally something that someone learns when they first get started on the path to enlightenment. There's a whole host of core central teachings that you need to learn and understand and practice to be able to train your mind, moving it closer to enlightenment. But this book, The Realms of Existence, it's volume 11 for a reason, because it's about 2 years or so by the time somebody gets to this book and starts studying it. There's a whole host of other teachings that someone would need to learn before they get to this point. But there is a point that you would like to be able to learn these kinds of things. So what this individual has done is what they're describing is this monk that has gone to all these other places looking for an answer of how do you get out of the cycle of rebirth? How do you end this constant cycle of rebirth? And because they couldn't find any answers, they ultimately come back to the Buddha. And the Buddha basically understands this and is able to now share with this person how you actually get to the end of the cycle of rebirth. And he says what the answer is that when the place where name and form are wholly destroyed, what he's talking about here is name and form is the physical body. He's saying that the way that you understand that is that it's with the elimination of consciousness that you will destroy this cycle of rebirth and you no longer experience continued rebirth. Because as long as there's a mind, it's going to find a body and it's going to come into the world. It's kind of like if you had a fire and you had logs on a fire. The logs are the fuel on this fire. And now, as long as there's logs on the fire, as long as there's fuel, it's going to send off sparks. And when those sparks go up into the wind and it's carried by the wind, they're going to land and it's going to ignite a new fire. It's not the same fire as before. It's a brand new fire, but it's coming from this first fire, from the logs. And now the sparks are flying and creating a new fire. So if this mind of yours has pollutions at the end of this life, then those are the causes and conditions that create the next mind. So if there's craving, desire, attachment in the mind, then that's the causes and conditions that lead to the next life. That's the spark that produces the next mind. And now when there's a mind, it's going to need to find a body, right? So for example, when our parents had intercourse, there was an egg in our mom, there was a sperm that came in from our dad. Now, when those two things came together, the third thing that came was the mind, and the mind came into this egg and sperm, and now we have a human being, right? And then this human being grew. But if you eliminate the consciousness, and the consciousness no longer exists, then it's not going to come into the egg and sperm, and now there's no longer rebirth. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you. And you gather this not just from this teaching, right? There's so many other teachings that you can understand and you can independently verify to be able to come to this conclusion. But this is just kind of a place where the Buddha is kind of getting to the heart of it, of just eliminating consciousness is what eliminates the continuous rebirth. And in order to eliminate the consciousness, you need to purify the mind. And the way to purify the mind is to cultivate wisdom of how to do that. The unenlightened mind has this lack of wisdom or this confusion or this misunderstanding that it doesn't know how to train itself. It's kind of like when we grew up, we didn't know how to take a shower, right? We had a lack of wisdom. We didn't even know that we needed to take a shower when we were first born. But slowly but surely over time, we gained the wisdom from our parents that taking a shower and cleaning this body was wise. And then over time, we're like, I really like this. And we figured out how to do it. And now we do it regularly because we enjoy it and it feels great, right? To be clean, right? But we weren't necessarily taught how to clean our mind. We don't have that wisdom naturally as we come into the world. So the Buddha's teachings are guiding you how to clean your mind. And now that you're an adult, if you didn't learn how to do this growing up as a child with your parents, you can actually choose to learn how to clean your mind. Because there's the body and then there's the mind, and these two things come together, we call it a person. But if you're only cleaning the body and you're not cleaning the mind, this is why you walk around feeling stressed and anxiety and anger and frustration. Because if you walked around and you didn't clean your body for several weeks or several months or several years, you'd be pretty uncomfortable, right? And if you've been doing that with the mind, just because of a lack of wisdom, you haven't been cleaning your mind, you'll walk around the world feeling very uncomfortable, right? So the Buddha is teaching you, as all of his teachings, how to clean your mind. And having cleaned your mind, getting it to the point where it's completely pure, then there's no causes and conditions that will lead to the next rebirth. And there's other teachings besides this that you would need in order to be able to independently verify what I'm sharing with you is true. But if you're just starting out, this isn't the place to start, because what's happened in the past is in the past. It doesn't matter right now. And what may or may not happen in the future in terms of rebirth, it hasn't happened yet. You don't have to worry about that. Instead, in the present moment, if your mind is experiencing discontentedness, which every unenlightened being will, that's what you would like to focus on, training your mind and purifying the mind, not worrying about the past or the future in terms of the cycle of rebirth. But at some point, you might choose to approach this to be able to understand the cycle of rebirth. Okay, so any questions here on this chapter? No questions? Okay, let me see what's next. Yeah, we usually end class right around this time. I think we can do that. There's some other teachings here where you guys might be interested. Let's actually read this one. Would someone like to read this one? We'll finish with this one.
But because there is an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, there is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. If there were not that unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, there would not be the case that escape from the born, become, made, conditioned would be identified. But precisely because there is an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, escape from the born, become, made, conditioned is thus identified. The born, become, produced, made, conditioned, impermanent, conditioned of aging and death, a nest of illnesses, perishing, come into being through nourishment and the guide, that is craving, is unfit for excitement. The escape from that is peaceful, permanent, a sphere beyond conjecture, unborn, unproduced, the sorrowless, stainless state, the elimination of stressful qualities, stilling of fabrications, and completely peaceful. There is, monks, an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. If, monks, there were no unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, no escape would be discerned from what is born, become, made, conditioned. But because there is an unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned, therefore an escape is identified from what is born, become, made, conditioned.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. So what the Buddha is saying here is that there is this state of being in this unenlightened mental state where there's this first part, he's saying that there's this unconditioned state. This is the enlightened mental state where the mind can get to that purity, where the mind is unconditioned and it's actually enlightened. And he's saying that this would be the escape. This would be the escape right here, where he's saying it's the escape from the born, become, made, conditioned. That's how you escape, is get to this point where the mind is completely purified, that the mind is now unconditioned, and you will escape this conditional experiences that the unenlightened mind experiences. The unenlightened mind experiences these conditional feelings that based on some condition, you will now be happy or excited or elated. But then when that condition no longer exists, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings like like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. That's why when you see the sun, you might get really happy based on the condition that it's sunny. The mind's craving the sun, it's longing, yearning for it. So now you'll be happy. But then because that's a conditioned feeling of happiness based on a condition, and that sun is not permanent, that means when it rains, you'll be sad or frustrated or irritated. That's the conditioned feelings going up and down and up and down. The unenlightened mind is going to experience that over and over and over and over and over again. But by the time you train your mind to enlightenment, you're going to experience the unconditioned mental qualities where the mind is always peaceful and always joyful. The mind is uplifted and bright and radiant and cheerful all the time. It is permanent. So that's what the Buddha is saying down here, is that the born become produced, made, conditioned, and permanent, conditioned of aging and death, a nest of illness, perishing, coming into being through nourishment, and the guide that is craving is unfit for excitement. What he's saying is it's unfit to take excitement in existence. Now, sometimes people are like, wow, that sounds pretty pessimistic, right? Like living in this world, like we shouldn't take excitement in it. Well, what he's saying is you shouldn't have conditional feelings. That if you get excited based on existing in this world, then that means when you get close to death, it'll be very painful for you. So instead of getting excited, just the fact that you exist, you can just appreciate that you're in existence. You can appreciate that you have this life and you're able to enjoy the things that you enjoy, but don't cling to it and hold on to it and crave for it to be permanent. Because it's not permanent. It is impermanent. If your mind craves this life to be permanent, when you get close to death, it'll be very painful for you. So the Buddha teaches you how to eliminate conditional excitement, that you can only be excited when certain things occur. It's like if my mom and dad do this, if my boss does this, if my bank account is this, if the weather is this, if I have this type of house, if I have this type of car, if my friends do this, if I get to go to Thailand and eat mango and sticky rice, right, then I will be happy, right? So that means your happiness shrinks. Your excitement shrinks because all of these conditions have to be met in order for you to experience that excitement. So conditional excitement is essentially undesirable because it's only temporary and it limits your ability to be peaceful and happy and joyful all the time. What the Buddha is teaching you to be able to get to is to be able to escape all of that conditionality and get to the point where the mind's permanently peaceful. It's permanently joyful. But as long as your mind is forming conditioned feelings, you can't get to permanent peace. As long as your mind is allowed to form conditioned feelings like, I am going to be happy because it's sunny, well, the sun is not permanent, so you can't be permanently happy. Or I am going to be happy because my bank account is here. Well, you can't be permanently happy because your bank account's not going to be permanently there, right? There's all these different things that the unenlightened mind is clinging to and craving to be permanent, but yet they are impermanent. So as long as you're forming your inner feelings based on external things, these external things are not permanent. So as soon as they change, that's where you're experiencing the painful feelings. So if you'd like to get to permanent peace and permanent joy, you need to get to the point where you've trained your mind to come to the middle, where you're not forming your inner feelings based on this thing. Right? So that's what the Buddha is guiding you to be able to do. And this is the escape. And essentially, there's a core central teaching called the Eightfold Path that is going to guide you in being able to do that. He doesn't talk about that here, but that's the beginning of the teachings of the Buddha, is learning the three universal truths, the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, meditation training, and all these other core central teachings that we haven't been talking about today because we're in volume 11. But if you'd like to learn these core central teachings, that's where the Sunday and Wednesday classes work out really well. Or you'll see on the calendar over there, there's the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course and things like this, that you can really get started with understanding the core fundamental teachings to be able to essentially transform your mind, that it's no longer forming inner feelings based on external things. Because if you can only be happy when you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, then that means when you don't have one of those, and you can't have one of those permanently, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed, right? If you can only be happy when your bank account balance is here, then when it goes here, you'll be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed. And because you live in a world that is impermanent, these things are going to be constantly changing. So the Buddha is teaching you how to transform your mind to no longer crave permanence. So do you guys have any questions on this chapter? Yes, sir. If you could get a microphone, we have microphones that'll help us to be able to hear you, and then the people online will be able to hear you as well. There's a gray button. You just need to press the gray button. Just wait a second, and then you'll be able to talk.
Can you hear me now?
We gotcha.
I want to ask about impermanence. For example, if I have a computer and the computer suddenly stops working, so coming from the understanding of impermanence, how should I act? I mean, if I will understand that it can happen, so I will not get angry and not get too frustrated. Just simply try to fix it.
Exactly. Yeah, you just make wise decisions, right? If you are sitting there working on your computer and maybe you're craving and longing and yearning to produce that document or surf the internet or watch that video, and now your computer goes out, like the battery dies, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed because the mind's craving this permanence and I'm not getting what I want, right? But if you understand, like, look at that silly computer, right? It's impermanent. Of course, it's
just
impermanent.
Just try to fix it.
Yeah, let me just reboot it. Let me get a power supply. Let me take it to the shop and get it fixed. This computer is not permanent. And when you understand that, you can understand the world's functioning exactly the way it's constructed, which is it's full of impermanence. But if your mind doesn't have that wisdom of the universal truth of impermanence, when you're experiencing the impermanence, your mind will really struggle during that period of time. It'll be very difficult because it's craving the permanence, but yet it's experiencing impermanence.
Yeah, that's actually quite confusing, because a few months ago, I was here and you just asked a question that if the projector breaks or doesn't work, what to do? And I said the exact same thing. I tried to fix it, but you reacted and you told me, no, you should have come with everyone to the retreat and you didn't listen and you didn't hear what I said. Actually, you didn't. You have eyes and you didn't see that I changed a few places. Since I internalized the impermanence, you said that everyone tends to sit in the same seat. So I changed, but I said the exact same answer, but you didn't listen. And you told me you should have come with us.
Sir,
you didn't come with us, and you said, and someone else said, okay, it's the impermanence. So you said, okay, that's right. You actually didn't listen to my answer.
Sir, I'm sorry, but I've never seen you before. I think you might be confused.
No,
that you're
you've seen me and I've been here. I'm not
Well,
confused.
if you'd like to talk after class, we can surely talk after class and I will help you. But I've never taught that any of these things around us are permanent. I've never done that. You can see in the books, you can see in all the videos.
Yeah, but that's what the way you reacted to me.
Okay.
And I know because I've been here. And actually, there is no reason to be, because you're not.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is what happens when the unenlightened mind doesn't get what it wants. Take care. Bye-bye. Yeah, this is what happens, right? The mind's going to push away, going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile when you don't give me what I want, right? I don't know who this person is. Apologize that you guys had to experience that. But nonetheless, we had a wonderful class. It was great to spend time with you guys, helping you to understand the teachings of the Buddha. Because as you guys see, that this isn't a good way to live life, right? Like functioning in this way. So you can learn to be loving and kind and warm and gentle with everybody around you. And this is something that your mind can be trained to experience. That you don't need to go through life being bitter and harsh and hostile with people. That's not the way to live life. So if you guys would like to learn more about the teachings of the Buddha, you can surely do that. There's plenty of opportunities for you to be able to do that. Tomorrow at 9 a.m., I'm going to be teaching the group learning program, which tomorrow we're going to be in chapter 11 of this first book. It's titled Meditation, Developing Your Practice. And this is where I'm going to teach all the ins and outs of the 4 types of meditations that the Buddha taught. He taught breathing mindfulness meditation, loving kindness meditation, meditation to realize non-self, and meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. These are 4 different meditations. These are the only 4 that you would ever need. And if you learn and understand those, then you can get really deep into those practices rather than pay attention to any other teachings that aren't necessarily taking your mind towards enlightenment. So I'm going to share with you, with the original words of the Buddha, the 4 types of meditations that he actually taught. And tomorrow is where you will see me teaching in a more traditional method, where I'll teach for 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up the questions, teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up the questions. And I'm going to be teaching that here at the temple at 9 a.m., but also at 9 p.m. too. So you guys can come to either class. It's the same topic. And then if you would like to join online, you can join through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom. Or if you can't attend live, you can always watch the recording because it's recorded on YouTube, it's recorded on Facebook, and all these other things. And then on Sunday at 6:30 p.m., in the main hall, we have a meditation where you can actually just come and I just do meditation with you guys and just open up to any and all questions that you guys would like. So if you're going to come, like say for the Sunday night walking market, which is very common for people to come to the shopping market, this is the area that they have the shopping market. So if you'd like to join for meditation at 6:30 at the main hall, you're welcome to do that. And then here at 9 p.m., we're also going to be doing meditation and I'll be teaching as well. So you guys can join any of these classes. And then on Wednesdays, I teach as well. So you can come on Wednesdays at 9 a.m. here if you'd like, because there I guide you in meditation, and then I just open up to any and all questions that you guys might like to ask. So thank you all for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha. If you would like to come talk with me about anything that you would like help with, you're more than welcome to do that, and I'll be pleased to be able to help you with that. So whatever you choose to do today, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.